Hi! Okay, I want to tell you about my second hour alone. So this week, the last 5 days, we went to Amsterdam, and let me tell you, it's a very different place than Maastricht. I didn't think I would end up doing my hour alone when we went there. We got to the city, went out with a group, as the entire group. David was there, Allison, Renee, and let me just tell you, I was completely in shock. Their transportation systems there are completely different than Maastricht. Like, you might have to worry about a bike or a car here, but in Amsterdam, they have trains and trams and everything's just coming at you. You have to be paying attention at all times. So literally, we stepped out of the train station, and I was in shock. And besides that, it's just a completely different place. It's a much bigger city and a different lifestyle there. And let me just tell you, I was really overwhelmed. We all talked about it after our first night. We were like, there's no way any of us are going to be able to do our hour alone here. And so, but by the end of the trip, somehow I decided that I was comfortable enough to do an hour alone. It was the last day, and we could sleep in. We ended up getting a school canceled on us, so that was a little disappointing, but we had some free time, so I was able to do my hour alone that morning. And I really wanted to see the Van Gogh Museum. I've had countless people tell me that's one of the best things to do, and or one of the best things. And so I decided that, okay, I'll see the Van Gogh Museum. There were some other people that wanted to as well, but they all left without me because miscommunication with time, no cell phones, all that stuff. So I was like, all right, I'll give it a shot. So I decided, since one of my global competencies is verbalizing and getting better at it, and putting myself into, the other one's putting myself into a risky situation, I decided to completely not use a map at all, and to only be able to get to the Van Gogh Museum by asking people for directions. I thought this made me pretty nervous, because the people in Amsterdam, I feel like there are so many other tourists and not as many people spoke English. So I was like, I don't even know if anybody's going to be able to communicate with me. So actually the first step of my hour alone was getting on an elevator with my giant luggage, which I really regret bringing. But I'm super claustrophobic, so this might sound silly to you, but it was a big deal for me to get in an elevator on a creaky old botel and go down it by myself. So that was step one, and I missed the floor, so I was on it for longer than I wanted to be. But besides that, that's where it started, and then I got on the ferry to go down to the city. It's about a 15-minute boat ride. That wasn't too scary. Being there by myself, the boat ride seemed longer, and I was looking around, listening to conversations. There wasn't much English going on, so I was like, okay, who's the first person I'm going to ask when I get there? And I was like, all right, maybe I'll just ask at the ticket booth or right at the train station. I get off the ferry, and everybody's going in different directions. I'm like, maybe I'll walk a little bit and look around to see if I can find somebody that would probably more likely know what they're doing. So I walk into the train station, and my heart just kind of sunk. This is the part that I hadn't been anticipating. I just didn't even know where to start. I almost gave in. I walked over to a map, and something told me that it wasn't even a map of the city. It was like the subway station. I was like, what did I get myself into? I wanted to turn around and go back on the boat, but I was like, no. So I started walking around the train station to see if I could find an information booth or something, and so I saw the currency booth, and I'm like, maybe they would know. But then I was like, I could find somebody better. So I see a group of police officers, and the police officers in the Netherlands are really different over here. They don't patrol. They kind of just hang out. We're still trying to figure out exactly what they do, but I've been getting better at asking for directions. My group mates always make me be the one to do so, which has been helping with my verbal skills. So I was like, I bet you the police officers out of anybody would know. So I walk up to them, and I ask them, do you know how to get to the I asked him, do you speak English? And he's like, yeah. And I was like, do you know how to get to the Van Gogh Museum? And he thinks for a minute, he's like, just get on the 5 and it'll take you there. And so I was like, do you know what stop it'll take me to? Because I can get on a bus, but all of the on a bus, a tram, he's like tram number 5. But all of the announcements are not in English, they're in Dutch. And all the street names are really confusing, so I wouldn't recognize any of them. And so I asked, like, what stop, and he was like, oh, you'll be able to hear it. They'll announce it. You'll hear Van Gogh. So I was like, oh my God, big relief. Walk out of the train station, and I see like 6 different trams. I'm like, okay, number 5. But there were 2 going opposite ways, so I was like, I don't know which one to get on. So I kind of just got on one. We have our little public transportation cards, so that's helpful. But I got on there, and then I was like, great, what if I'm on the wrong one? We have to be back at the hotel, or the boatel, at 4 o'clock because we're leaving to go back to Maastricht. What if I get lost in this huge city? So I just wait until some more people get on, and these 2 blonde girls sit down next to me, like across the aisle. And I was like, do you speak English? And they were like, yeah. And I was like, does this go to Van Gogh? And they were like, yes. And then I felt better again. So I was sitting there thinking, and I was like, how am I going to know what stop to get off on? Everything was in Dutch, and the tram was loud, and I couldn't even hear what it was saying, and I picked an awkward spot to sit in, and so I was like, I'm afraid I'm going to miss the stop or not know when it's coming. But I didn't want to be that annoying tourist that keeps asking questions, so I waited a little bit, and 10, 15 minutes had gone by, and they're still sitting there. Then like 10 more people get on the bus like around my area, so it was really crowded and I couldn't hear anything. So here I am freaking out, don't know where this tram's going to end up going. I know it'll eventually go back to Central Station, but I didn't want to waste any time. And so I ended up leaning over and asked them, do you know which stop? And she goes, it should be about 10 or 15 minutes from here. Well, I don't know. I didn't know if she meant like if I got off here a 10 or 15 minute walk, or if it would be a 10 or 15 minute bus ride, or how many stops that is. Like, what if we get stuck in traffic? But again, I felt like that annoying tourist, so I didn't want to keep asking questions. And I also, put myself in a risky situation, try and figure it out on my own. And so I just sat there for a little bit, and the girls were so friendly. When they got off, a couple stops later, probably about 10 minutes or so, they were like, Van Gogh is the next stop. So it was a really proud moment for myself because I feel like I verbalized with them without annoying them and was able to get directions and it kind of blended in with the crowd, so that was really nice. So the next stop I get off and I'm like, okay, I'm here. Well, I get off, again, no idea where the Van Gogh Museum is from there. So as soon as I get off, I actually saw 2 ladies that I had recognized from the ferry. And so I stopped and asked them, and I tried to ask them in English. They spoke no English. They just looked at me like it was crazy. I was like, okay. So I start walking one direction, and I hear English. I hear 2 guys talking English with a map. And I was like, excuse me, do you know where the Van Gogh Museum is? And they were like, we're trying to navigate around ourselves. So I was like, okay, great. So I just picked a direction and went. And after walking for a while, I thought, I would notice it because that was the stop. So I thought I would notice like a huge museum somewhere. Wasn't seeing anything. So I was like, where could I stop to find a local? And so I just went in the bakery right on my right. And I went in there, and the first lady I saw, I was just like, excuse me, do you know where the Van Gogh Museum is? And she was so nice and helpful. She was like, yep, just go straight and take 2 lefts, and you'll be there. And so I was like, awesome. Like, I'm so glad somebody could tell me where to go, because it was getting, it had been about like 40 minutes at this point. So I was like, okay, so I still have time to get there. And so then I turned around and went, and I saw the Van Gogh Museum. It said Van Gogh. I have pictures. I'll post them on my Facebook. And then there was a big construction site in front of it. So I like walk over there. There's no entryway, and I'm like, great. And so then I walk through this park to try and find it. There's another huge loop with the building. And so finally, I go near the entrance, and I see 2 redheads, and I'm like, that's a weird combination. You usually don't see that. And then I was like, those are the people that left this morning without me to go see the Van Gogh Museum. So I call their names, and we meet up, and it was like really close to my hour being over right then, so it was kind of perfect. And they were like, I can't believe you made it here. It took us 2 hours to get here, and you left an hour after us. And so by me verbalizing and taking the public transportation system, I actually got there faster than them. So that was really cool. And then I had a group to go see the museum with, which was awesome. And now I definitely feel like I could talk to anybody, even if they don't know English. You're just kind of like, thank you, and walk away. But I feel like asking for directions is so much easier than reading a map. I'll also post a map on Facebook so you guys can see what kind of names those streets are at. And I can't believe that I navigated through Amsterdam. That city is huge and scary, and day one I couldn't even walk with the group without being worried. And the last day I navigated all the way to the Van Gogh Museum by myself. So that was my awesome second hour alone, and I will talk to you again soon. Okay, bye.